The training hall of the Viridian Combat Academy stretched across 3 levels, its crystalline walls reflecting the pale light of twin suns. Commander Zixthor, a veteran of 40 campaigns across 12 star systems, stood at the center of the sparring circle, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture that every species in the galaxy recognized as skepticism. "Another human," he muttered, his translator chip converting his native clicks and whistles into standard Galactic. "Command sends me farmers and merchants these days, expecting me to forge warriors." Belle stepped forward from the line of new recruits, her worn combat boots making soft sounds against the polished floor. She was unremarkable by human standards: average height, dark hair pulled back in a practical braid, lean muscle earned from necessity rather than vanity. Her eyes, however, carried something that made Zixthor pause. They were old eyes in a young face. "Name and origin," Zixthor demanded. "Belle. Earth. Outer colonies," she replied, her voice steady and flat. "Experience? Some." The other recruits, a Croanian with scales that shimmered like oil, a Metharian whose gaseous form barely held shape in the gravity field, and Dawson, another human who'd been boasting about his military school credentials all morning, shifted uncomfortably. Zixthor's secondary eyes narrowed. "Some," he repeated mockingly. "Humans and their modesty. Or is it ignorance?" He gestured to the weapons rack that lined the western wall. "Choose your weapon, recruit. Let's see what some means to your kind." Belle walked to the rack with measured steps. Her hand passed over plasma rifles, sonic disruptors, and gravitic hammers, all the modern weapons that had defined warfare for the past millennium. Instead, she reached for something that made several recruits gasp. It was a blade. Not just any blade, but a human-forged sword. Nearly a meter long, slightly curved, its edge catching the light in a way that suggested it had been sharpened so many times that the metal had been worn thin in places. "A primitive weapon," Zixthor said, though his tone had changed. "How quaint." Belle turned the blade over in her hands, and that's when the instructor saw it. The etchings. They ran along the fuller of the blade, tiny marks that seemed random at first glance. But Zixthor had been a soldier long enough to recognize military notation when he saw it. He stepped closer, his primary eyes widening. What is that?" The other recruits crowded around. Dawson, with his fresh academy uniform and spotless gear, leaned in and felt his breath catch. The etchings weren't decorative. They were kill marks, battle records, coordinates and dates in a dozen different notation systems. Zixthor's translator chip worked overtime as his eyes traced the inscriptions. Kepler 442b, the breach at Alpha Gate, the siege of Proxima Station, the Black Fleet offensive, the defense of New Terra. "Impossible," Zixthor breathed. "These battles, these were..." He looked up at Belle, really looked at her for the first time. The Kepler breach was 8 years ago. The Black Fleet offensive was the largest battle in recorded history. Casualties numbered in the millions. Belle met his gaze without flinching. 9,400,073, she said quietly. "Give or take a few hundred we never found." The training hall had gone completely silent. Even the Metharian had stopped its constant humming. "You were there," Zixthor said. "It wasn't a question." "All of them," Belle replied, "and 12 others not on the blade. Ran out of space." Dawson stepped back involuntarily. He'd been in simulations, war games, tactical exercises. This woman had been in actual wars, the wars that the entire galaxy still whispered about in fear and awe. The wars where humanity had gone from being dismissed as primitive backwaters to becoming the single most terrifying military force in known space. Zixthor's 4 hands trembled slightly. "I fought in the Proxima Station defense. I saw what you humans did there. We were outnumbered 50-1. The Krelith Armada had never been defeated, and then your ships arrived. We don't leave our friends behind," Belle said simply. "You and the Proxima colonists needed help. We came." "You came," Zixthor repeated, and something like a laugh escaped his translator. "You came with 30 ships against 1,500. And you won. We watched from the station as you tore through their fleet like they were made of paper. The Krelith had conquered 40 systems. You broke them in 6 hours." He reached out with one hand, stopping just short of touching the blade. "May I?" Belle handed it to him. The weapon was heavier than it looked, balanced in a way that spoke of master craftsmanship. Zixthor's trained eye caught more details now. the worn grip that had been replaced multiple times, the slight discoloration near the hilt where acid blood had etched the metal, the microscopic scratches that only came from deflecting energy weapons. This blade had been through hell. Multiple hells, why a blade? The Crowanian recruit asked, her voice full of genuine curiosity rather than mockery. Humans have access to all modern weapons. Why do you carry something so old? Bell's expression softened slightly. Because when you're in a breach, when the shields are down and the power's out and you're in close quarters with an enemy that wants to tear you apart, a blade doesn't run out of ammunition. It doesn't need a power cell. It doesn't jam or overheat or malfunction. She paused. And it's quiet. Sometimes quiet is what keeps you alive. Zixthor carefully handed the blade back to her. You've seen things that would break most warriors. I've seen what happens when we're not strong enough, Bell corrected. That's why I'm here. To get stronger. To make sure I'm ready for the next time. The next time, Dawson echoed, finding his voice. You think there will be a next time? Bell looked at him, and for a moment, Dawson saw past the calm exterior to the weight she carried. There's always a next time, she said. Peace is just the space between wars where we catch our breath and bury our dead. Zixthor straightened to his full height, all four arms coming up in the formal salute of the Viridian military caste. Forgiveness, warrior. I mistook you for a recruit. You are already what I try to create. No, Bell said, shaking her head. I'm here to learn. You've fought in campaigns I've only read about. You've trained soldiers from 100 worlds. I need that knowledge. She looked around at the other recruits. We all do. Because next time it might not be humanity that needs to do the saving. Next time we need to be ready to stand together. The instructor lowered his arms slowly, something like respect, or perhaps recognition in his alien features. Then let us begin, he said. All of you to your positions. Today you will learn from someone who has walked through fire and emerged still standing. As the recruits moved to their training positions, Dawson found himself next to Bell. Those battles on your blade, he said quietly. Did we really win all of them? Bell was silent for a moment, her thumb running along the sword's worn grip. We survived them, she said finally. Sometimes that's the same thing. Sometimes it's not. The training session began, and Commander Zixthor found himself watching Bell move through the exercises with the fluid grace of someone who'd learned every lesson in blood and survival. She didn't show off, didn't grandstand. She simply moved with the efficiency of someone who'd learned that wasted motion could mean death. And on her hip, the blade rested in its worn sheath, its etchings a silent testament to the wars that had forged humanity's reputation among the stars. A reputation written not in boasts or propaganda, but in the simple, terrible truth of survival against impossible odds. The instructor had asked who this human was. Now he knew. She was a reminder that humanity hadn't asked to become warriors. The galaxy had made them that way, and in doing so it had created something far more dangerous than any weapon. Survivors who refused to stay down.